What kind of common charges can you expect to be paying when you buy an apartment in New York City? Well, we're going to break it down in this video, and I can tell you that not all common charges are created equally, so we're going to learn about the differences. And stick around until the end of this video because we're going to talk about how those common charges can inform your decision and make sure that you are buying a sound investment in New York City. I'm Dewey. I'm your New York City real estate resource. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And let's get started. So when buyers are coming from outside of New York City, they often refer to their monthly payments as HOA charges, homeowners association charges. In New York City, we tend to refer to them as common charges, and not all common charges, and indeed not all monthly payments, are created the same. It largely depends on the kind of building that you're buying into. If you're buying a co-op or if you're buying a condo. With a co-op, you have one monthly payment in addition to your mortgage. With a condo, you have two monthly payments in addition to any mortgage you may be carrying. So let's break it down, let's understand the differences, and then let's talk about what that means for you. Let's start with the payments on a co-op. So the first thing to understand about co-ops is that you are not buying real property. You are not actually buying the unit in the building. What you are purchasing are shares in a shareholder-owned company that owns the building and owns the unit. A proprietary lease is then made and allows you to live in that unit. But what you technically own are shares. Therefore, you're not subject to things like property taxes because technically you don't own any property. So with a co-op, you have one monthly payment, and we tend to refer to that as the maintenance payment. And like the name implies, it is a charge that helps with the cost of maintaining the entire co-op. If your co-op has a doorman and a porter and a super, all of those charges are going to get folded into that maintenance payment to support those costs, along with the general electricity of the building, the maintenance in boilers, all of that gets boiled down to these one charges. It is a per share cost. So what does that mean? Well, it means that all of the expenses are dwindled down to a per share cost. If it's $1 per share and you own 100 shares, guess what your maintenance payment is going to be? So the amount of shares that you own that are assigned to your particular apartment definitely impacts the amount of maintenance that you're going to have. So I mentioned earlier that when you own a co-op, you do not own any real property. You own shares in the company that owns the building. Therefore, you're not subject to any property taxes, and that's why you do not have a monthly property tax payment. However, the building, the actual co-op, is real property and is subject to property taxes. So the company that owns the building is subject to property taxes. Also, most buildings in New York City are going to be carrying a mortgage or maybe several mortgages on the actual building, which is incurring mortgage interest, and they're having to make the monthly payments just like anyone that has a mortgage. Now, all of the mortgage payments and the property taxes get divided up on a per share basis, and you help pay those for the building. Here's the great thing about that. You will get sort of an extra tax deduction because as a shareholder who is paying part of the property taxes and the mortgage interest rates, you are allowed to take that tax deduction. That is on top of the tax deduction that you may have for your own personal mortgage on the property. So you kind of get a double tax deduction there, which is a perk of owning a co-op. Now, in contrast, condos are real property. You are not buying shares like you are buying on a co-op. You are actually buying that unit that is in that building. So as a result, condos have two payments. The first payment are the common charges or the HOA fees to maintain the building, and the second are the property taxes that are assessed just like a house or any other structure in the suburbs, and you are personally responsible for property taxes on that. Now, the common charges for a condo are similar to what's covered in the co-op common charges, meaning that it covers all all the staff, the doorman, the super, the porters, the common areas, the maintenance of the entire building. If you have a live-in super, most usually the residence for the super, because it is real property, has to be taken care of, so there's a charge for that gets folded in. And typically the condo common charges depend on the size of apartment that you have, so square footage does matter in a condo when it comes to common charges. Now, in terms of tax deductibility on a condo, very different from a co-op. Owning a condo is owning real property, just like owning a house out in the burbs. Whatever tax deductions you may be able to do out in the burbs, you're typically going to be able to do on a condo because you own real property. That is a highly personalized assessment, so you need to get with your accountant and determine what those tax deductions can be. Now, when you're buying an apartment, you need to be very aware of the maintenance or common charges in both a co-op and a condo. It's not just about does it fit in your budget. Obviously, you're going to be looking at those charges along with what your mortgage payment will be and what your overall monthly payments are going to be. But more importantly, especially with the co-op, maintenance payments are a sign of the financial health of the building. So if you have 2 or 3 comparable buildings in terms of prices of apartments, you're going to want to look at those co-op maintenance fees. If one is much higher than the other 2, that's obviously going to influence your decision. But say you really love that apartment and you want to go for that apartment anyway, take a look at that maintenance fee and find out during your due diligence period why that maintenance is so high. It could be that the building is having a little bit of financial trouble. Your attorney is going to be able to do the due diligence, look at the minutes from the board meetings, look at the board finances, the accountant finances for the past couple of years on the building, and help guide you as to why that maintenance payment may be high. Perhaps the building is sort of on a downward cycle in terms of its finances, or it's had a lot of problems. Perhaps a new boiler had to be replaced or the roof had to be replaced. Those kinds of things affect your maintenance payment. And I can guarantee you that rarely does a maintenance payment ever go down. Typically, they only go up. So you want to make sure that you're making a good decision and entering into a building that is very strong financially so that your future investment is a good sound one. Also keep in mind that when you're selling a unit, so for your future investment in terms of buying and potentially selling in 5 or 10 years, there is a balance between a maintenance payment and the price. So going back to exactly what you're probably doing, considering that entire price between a mortgage and your maintenance payment, what your monthly payment is going to be. If a seller's maintenance payment is far too high, they're going to have to lower the price of their unit to be able to balance out that monthly payment and make it appetizing for buyers out there, because buyers may be going and seeing other buildings. And even though in New York we really can't compare building to building in terms of pricing units, we can look at them in terms of the overall monthly payment and if it makes sense. So quite simply put, if the maintenance payment in a building is on the higher side, or for a condo, if the common charges plus the property taxes are on the higher side, sellers are always going to have to lower their price to make sure that the market can withstand what that total monthly cost is going to be. So as you're buying your co-op, you're going to want to look forward into the future and consider whether or not that maintenance payment, even though maybe you love that apartment, is that maintenance payment a smart one? Does it balance out within a few $100s of other maintenance payments in other buildings? And does it make sense for you in terms of your overall investment? Okay, I hope this sheds some light on the monthly payments associated with buying an apartment in New York City. Please take a moment to look below for all the different ways you can get in touch with me. I would love to help you find your New York City dream home. And please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and I'll see you next time.